YouTube, hey there, it's Casey Dimon here at TaxSaleAcademy.com. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's tax sale tip video. Now, before we get to this week's tip, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. That way you don't miss out on future tax sale training videos. There should be a red subscribe button somewhere on your page that'll help you get subscribed to this channel. All right, this week I want to talk about tax foreclosures and code enforcement. So it's probably not a secret that a property going through a tax foreclosure is not going to be in perfect condition. Typically, it's going to be the ugliest property on the block with the most issues. If the taxes have not been paid, which are required in order to continue ownership of that property, then I can assure you that the property probably has not been maintained. So the result are homes that are fairly ugly. That's not a bad thing because it can make incredible investments. But when you have an ugly house with potential code enforcement issues, it's going to pop up on the radar of the local code enforcement department, especially if it's located inside of the city and especially if the neighbors have reported it. Now, depending on the area, code enforcement issues could include broken windows, rotten decks, trash on the properties, overgrown weeds, unsafe structures, and lots of other things. What typically happens is that a code enforcement officer will issue a warning to the property owner when these things pop up. And this is going to be followed by a set period of time, usually a fairly short window, to bring that property into compliance, to clean the property up, fix the window, whatever it is. If the property is not brought into compliance, a citation will then be issued along with a fine. If that's ignored, more citations and more fines will come. Eventually, the fines could start accumulating daily, and they could have the potential to get into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on how long those fines accumulate. And we'll get back to citations in just a second, but I've discussed this part of it before. If you have a piece of property where a code enforcement lien has been placed against that property prior to the tax sale, then that lien is going to be yours. The government liens do remain through tax foreclosure. That means you'll have to clean the property up if that's the underlying cause of the issue, clean up the trash or whatever it is. You have to fix that issue, plus either pay the fine or attempt to negotiate that fine with the city or the county. Now, this week's tip isn't necessarily about that. Let's say that you did your research and there were no issues currently with the code enforcement officer prior to your purchase at a tax sale. That's fantastic, right? But what if the property does have some issues? You can drive by, you notice some potential issues. Maybe the deck's falling off. Maybe it's just an unsafe structure. Maybe there's trash everywhere, whatever it is. But let's say code enforcement never caught those issues. Well, anything after the tax sale is going to be your responsibility, obviously. But here's the kicker. A lot of code enforcement officers, they know that a property is going through a tax foreclosure. They know that a property will be sold at a tax sale. In some areas, they know that writing a ticket for issues with that property is not going to do any good because the owner of that property won't clean it up. Again, if they did not pay their taxes, they're not going to pay those tickets. They're not going to pay to clean that property up most of the time. Now, in some states, the owner of the property might even be the county itself. If you're talking about the time between when the county forecloses on the property and when it's sold at a tax sale auction. So here is where it can become a huge issue. You have a property with issues, right? You have a property that has trash or broken windows, is unsafe, whatever it is. But there are no citations. There's no records of any action being taken against that property by the code enforcement office, according to your research. You even call them. They're like, nope, the property's fine, right? Then you buy that property, let's say, on a Monday. Meanwhile, that code enforcement officer, he is tracking the sale. He knows who bought the property. And he knows that the investor, who, by the way, has enough money to invest in real estate, would make a fantastic target to clean up that property or to pay their citations. So by Friday, You bought it on Monday, by Friday you get a letter in the mail telling you to clean up the property within a week. But you're busy. You're traveling to that auction and you finally get home and you can't get it cleaned up that quickly, so you ignore the letter. And then he starts sending citations to you, not once, not twice, but every single day. Every day until you clean up that property. And this has happened to me. Happened many, many years ago. But I actually saved these citations just so I could teach off these in the future, right? I'm looking at these citations for a dilapidated house. This was from, let's see, March the 12th, and it was at 8:57 a.m. March 13th, 8 a.m. March 14th, 10 a.m. March 15th, 9:30 a.m. March 16th, 10:15 a.m. March 17th, 11 a.m. I got a stack of tickets. Each one of these is a $500 fine. So that is a lot of $500 fines. That's about $3,000 or so. And I had lots of aggravation dealing with these fines and that particular property. But it was a huge learning experience for me kind of early on in my career. Long story short, the code enforcement officer was waiting on somebody to buy the property at the auction. He gave that person a very short period of time to clean it up, and then he started issuing that person daily citations. In this case, that person was me. And believe me, this happens routinely, very routinely. I've had auctioneers before that have told me that code enforcement offices have requested a copy of the buyers immediately after an auction. So this week's tip: if you're going to buy a property that has any sort of potential code violations, even if that property has not yet been issued any sort of citation, understand that you are putting a huge target on your back when you do this. It's not the end of the world, but the only way to remove that target is to resolve every single potential issue as soon as possible after your purchase. Now, whether you know it or not, you are likely being watched when you buy a piece of property that has potential issues at a tax sale auction. And they're likely waiting to see if you take care of those issues within their desired time frame. So keep that in mind. I truly hope that this helps you out. Buying a house with issues, whether it's trash or it's just a house in bad condition, it's not the end of the world. In fact, I've made plenty of money off of homes that have issues, including this house right here. I did very well despite these fines, but just be forewarned that you need to make sure all the issues are taken care of as soon as possible. Listen, if today's video has helped you out, do me a huge favor, click on that thumbs up button just to let me know. Hey, thanks so much for watching, and make it a successful day. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.